Hey, folks, there's nothing wrong with getting more 4 stars in the fold. Mario Cristobal and company has done just that in the last week. We will detail right here, the voice of college football, our Hurricane show that we have presented for a record 333 times, more so than any show on the voice of college football platform. And the guy mostly responsible for that is the dude right there that makes it all happen for us, Cam Underwood, State of the U. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Good man, good. Yeah, just here for a record-setting time. So again, people were saying that I'm not around or I'm not here or I don't care or whatever because I
Did
missed two
people
times
say
in five
that?
weeks. Bro, mentions. I'm telling you, yes, yes. So I am like Amon Ross St. Brown for my Detroit Lions. Who is psychotic and like he knows every wide receiver picked before him and the team and the pick, and has outperformed like all of them. Yeah, I don't like forget things like that, and maybe it is an area for growth or whatever, but in some instances I can hold grudges. So like I remember y'all said that, so just go ahead. I mean, well, not y'all, but there were a couple people. But hey, that's all right. Whether or not they want to out themselves or anything. Thanks for watching because I know that you're here and everything. Here for the show, here for the big boy show, the OG, triple OG. Every hour here talking about Miami Hurricanes, and there's plenty to talk about both in the movement since the last time that we spoke, and then just an absolutely massive recruiting weekend set up for this last weekend in June. So yeah.
Folks, we like to keep things, of course, optimistic, hopeful, and forward thinking, and spotlight you and what benefits you. But every so often, we like to keep it real, as they say. I don't say that myself, but that's the first thing that comes to mind in regards to we got 52 Wednesdays in a year. I don't want to take a guess at how many times Cam shows up, 48, 49, whatever the number is, but it's more about the quality than the quantity, first and foremost.
Yeah.
So if we take 5 weeks off a year, not a big deal, folks. Cam delivers. He's here. We don't compensate him to the level that I would like to. We will work on that and do work on that and so forth. So the information, the insight, the storytelling, the knowledge, all of it involved is just a rare commodity here. So we hope you all appreciate. There we go. 2 4 stars in the last week. The top rated player in the class currently out of 12 hard commits would be one Kevin Riley, the running back out of Alabama.
Yeah. He's the latest player to commit just this past Monday. He's a top 100 player, top 10 in his position by every rating service. 5'11", 6 foot, around that 195, 200 range from Tuscaloosa County High School in Northport, Alabama. So, this is a guy where like literally you go into Nick Saban's backyard, like because U of A is in Tuscaloosa proper, but you get the Tuscaloosa County High School. Like we're not going to pretend like this is not a guy who was on their radar or something like that. I mean, people can if they want to, but that's asinine. Um, but yeah, he's an elite talent, and it's not. This is not the Moby Dick of this class, because the whole staff has been on the, we're whale hunting, we're chasing whales and everything like that. Like it might not be, the legendary narwhal, but like this is, a record-setting swordfish type joint. You know what I mean? Like a guy of this caliber, and again from where he's from, is really, really a great get for Miami. He's long been atop the running back board. He's a guy who I've mentioned a couple of times on here as a very high level target. But offers from Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn. I think Florida State was in there. Just some really top end teams going after this kid. 1,306 yards and 11 touchdowns on almost 6.5 a carry. As a junior last year, he was Alabama 7A football player of the week after a 277 and a touchdown game against Spain Park. Also had 2 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns last year, which efficient, so both times he caught the ball, scored. Pretty decent. But yeah, he's a guy who has plenty of burst and quickness. You can watch in his highlights that he is really quick to get north and south. He's a one-cut guy. He's not really going to dance and wiggle too much, trying to find a hole. Because, you can have those guys who can be feast or famine. I mean, my favorite running back ever, who I'm going to put at the top of the list, and I know other people are not going to say this, would be Barry Sanders. He was always, hey, I'm looking, that's why the Lions switched to zone blocking when he got there and just said, look, y'all block the zone and he will pick where he needs or wants to go with his vision and creativity. You're not going to have that kind of performance. It's going to be more a little upright with his running style. So a la Brian Robinson a little bit, just from the physical standpoint. Ooh, Lord Jesus. I thought that was on vibrate. Sorry about that. But yeah, so it's going to be a little bit of an upright runner. But that's a style that can work. But yeah, he's a guy who fits the physical profile at running back. And when you pair him with Wheatley Humphrey, he's a runner. He's a track star at the position. Who's a guy, when you're averaging, 16 yards a carry or whatever it was for Wheatley Humphrey, who I believe is going to end up with a higher rating than present. That's a really great duo. So, again, you go into the heart of SEC country, you go into the same county as the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa County to get Kevin Riley to commit a couple of days ago. That's a really, really good get. The other one who committed the day after we talked last week is a guy who I mentioned as being on that radar, and a guy somebody asked about. That's Elijah Lofton from Bishop Gorman. No H at the end of Elijah, in case you were wondering the spelling, or if you're going to look him up, you're going to spell it like the Bible. No, take the H off. So Elijah Lofton. But yeah, he's Brevin Jordan 2.0. 6'2", 230. Running in the low 4.5s. Goes to Gorman, wears number 9, plays tight end, but it's more of that H-back move, mismatch nightmare kind of dude at that position. And it's a sneaky, to me, speed addition to the team. He's not, who's a really fast. So he's not going to be like Evan Ingram-ish at tight end because he's not that kind of fast. Like, he's not David Njoku ran like sub 4.4. Like, he's not that kind of fast. He's a little bit more compact, but he is that Swiss Army knife, and he, running in the, low 4.5s in high school. So if you can keep that, or maybe even, be in the high 4.8s, that is actually continuing to add speed on this roster, which is a thing that, Miami's been very, very focused on doing. So, you go out there again, to Bishop Gorman, keep that pipeline wide open, especially for, tight ends that wear the number 9. I mean, like, come on. It's who are, south of 6'3" and south of 240 pounds. Like, the connections between Lofton and Brevin Jordan are many there, and it's a really good get, and that's another 4-star. So, that the last 2 commitments have been currently ranked 4 stars. I do again believe that several of the other commitments are going to see their stock rise over the course of their senior season, and even some of those who are in that 3-star range right now are going to be bumped up to blue chip range. And yeah, so I mean, it is not where it needs to be, but Miami went from, because we have 12 commits and now we have 3 4-stars. So we went from 10% blue chip ratio to 25% in the space of a week. Like, and we have a higher raw number of 4-stars, being 3 at this time, than we had on this same day last year, which was only 1. So I say that to say, I mentioned that, people were saying, things about like, oh, hey, like Cristobal and staff have fallen off, and like, they're not going to be able to recruit and blah, blah. And, like, people always want to pile on. So, like, I saw Darren Ravel and then like a couple other people talking about, the stock price of life wallet or whatever, being like, oh yeah, so the NIL, well, what, guys, our pockets are way deeper than that. John Ruiz wants to run his mouth. He wants to be the front man. And so they're letting him be the front man. Trust and believe there are other collectives. There is more money than just him. We are not just saying, hey, dad, can I have an allowance to one dude in terms of NIL money. That is so far off. But if people want to keep on that and everything and then be surprised when Miami keeps recruiting to a high level, keeps having these NIL engagements and everything, and, that has leveled the playing field, and like we are at that lead table in that way still, even with everybody talking about, John Ruiz and the state of his financial affairs. I mean, if they keep talking about, the fact that like he's running out of money and it's not going to work and everything, but then Miami continues to recruit and keeps having this influx of money in this area, then that kind of shows and proves like, hey, if you're thinking that he's going down or the level of money over with him is not what it once was, but everything else stays the same, then that kind of shows you that he ain't the only one. But hey, so yeah, it's going. I think that, recruiting is going well. But yeah, you've missed on some guys. 4-star linebacker / baseball player James Nesta from North Carolina picked Oklahoma this past time. I think it was yesterday, matter of fact. Things like that. Like you're not getting everybody, and that's okay. But we're starting to see movement in a positive direction on the trail, and all of these previous visit weekends over the course of the month of June, you're seeing a lot of the needle moving with these really top end guys. No, they're not committing on visits just across the country as much as they used to, players, but Miami is really, really, really doing well in representing themselves across the course of this cycle. And, it does take time to finally start to get some of these commitments, but I'm very confident in what the work is that Miami has done. And then when you add guys like Lofton and Riley to the group that's already there and then continue that momentum forward, I think that, we're fine. We're in a great place, but we just got to keep, treading water, chopping wood, and moving forward.
Falconer TRX, thank you so much. Super sticker, Falconer TRX. This is almost the official start of the show when he lays down the super sticker and gets us going. Appreciate that, sir. Falconer following up with this one. Swiss Army knife, tight end, critical to deep receivers.
Sure, fine. I mean, you got to have guys who can attack the defense at multiple levels. And you have that. So, you want to add some other guys, especially in the receiving core, especially of that, really 1A alpha dog, just, that those generational talents at receiver, of which, Miami has missed on from South Florida so many times over the course of the last, 20 years. We all know all those names, but yeah, a Swiss Army knife tight end, is it's critical to everything. You don't want to be a one-trick pony. You don't want to be, God, who was a guy? Michael Irvin Jr., when he was here years ago, you could be like, hey, he's coming in the game. Miami's going to run the ball because he's not really involved in the vertical pass game, in the passing game really at all. But you saw him come off the sideline, like, you're going to probably run the ball. Maybe you tack on play action, but it's really not giving much diversity to what the the play calling output is going to be when you see somebody like that come on the field. But if you think back, and this is one of those games that I thought, not thought, I was there and like Miami should have won this game, needed to win this game and didn't. It was against Florida State in 15. Yeah, I want to say, or wait, are we? No, we're even years home. So it was 14, I want to say. And let me just make sure. 2014 Miami FSU football. Let me just make sure that this is the game that I'm thinking of. I'm pretty sure that it is. It is. Okay, yeah, this is the game that Miami got out to a big lead and was up 23-10 at halftime. And then, Dalvin Cook did Dalvin Cook things, whatever. But I just remember we were so keyed up for that game. We came out early and really punched them in the mouth. And one of the plays that was really a line of demarcation for me was we came out in heavy personnel, right? So I think it was 21, two backs, one tight end. And it was, so you had Walter Tucker, number 44 at fullback, and you had Clive Walford at tight end. And you go, you're going I formation, you're going heavy, big boy personnel. So then Florida State matches that, like, all right, cool, we're going to go and match you with big boy personnel. But then we came out and went 5 wide spread with those guys, right? Because remember, Walter Tucker was an All-American high school track guy. He was like a 2 or 3 time state champion at American Heritage. And then you had Clive Walford, who had a nice career, a borderline still in the NFL. And you put him at a slot, and then you're up against these big run-stuffing linebackers. Bomb, you hit him up the seam for like 63 yards or whatever, and you take it to the house. And then that was a game where, like, let me see, where's the and that was Clive Walford, 61-yard touchdown from Brad Kaya to go up 23-7 early in the second quarter. Like, that was scored with 11:37, and then nothing else happened in that quarter except for a field goal with like 8 minutes left. But being able to have the diversity of scheme with the kind of athletes that we went with that would otherwise hint at something else, a different, very, very different engagement from a alignment and usage situation. But then you're able to, hey, no, we're not going heavy. We're not going jumbo with the jumbo guys. We're going spread, and we're going to split you down the middle of the seam and go score. That was a thing. And I remember watching it. I said, oh my goodness, we can do this. And that's a time when we had not beat Florida State in a long time. This is the year after national championship, Florida State in 2013. You know what I mean? Like, reigning national champion, defending Heisman Trophy. Like, that's the kind of thing that we had, but we had the athletes to be able to do that. And when you have somebody like an Elijah Lofton, who has a similar profile-ish to Clive Walford, now you can go and fake out and be like, yeah, we're going jumbo. Think that we're going jumbo. Match us on substitutions and intentionally sub in people. So they're like, oh, we're going short yardage. Nah, fuck your short yardage. But with our short yardage guys, we're going spread, and I'm going to split your seam in this cover 2 and go score. You have that diversity of ability, right? When you have speed embedded on the roster in non-traditional speed places. When Ray Joseph gets on the field, you know that we're trying to go fast. When you have, whoever, a running back, that wants to be a speedster, you put Wheatley Humphrey on the field, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is like a speed guy. But if you have a Lofton who's like, I can do it all guy, but also run 4.5 or sub 4.5, that also is a thing that gives you the ability to kind of, create mismatches and take advantage of them. But yeah, getting a guy of his caliber, and also, Kevin Riley, who can be the lead back at, here at the University of Miami, really, really strong recruiting, but we're not done yet. So we got to keep pushing.
Elisha Lofton in his junior season caught 30 for 756. That's 25.2 yards per reception, 11 touchdowns on just 30 catches. The previous season as a sophomore, 22 for 507. So another big downfield number of 23 yards per catch, 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, you hear the numbers, but also he's somebody who, when you watch his highlights, is moved around all over the place. He plays outside. He plays, like on the boundary, one-on-one, like like an X or a Z receiver. He plays the slot inside of the 2. They even run, 3 trips to a side, and he'll be, either, counting from the boundary 1, 2, or 3. In those alignments, he can do all the H-back move stuff and everything. So you're thinking, play action and things like that. Yeah, he's able to be used in a very great diversity of ways. So and been successful at it over the course of time. And I really trust those numbers because Bishop Gorman, like St. Thomas Aquinas, is such a great national program that they keep all the stats from ever. Like, it's not the Underwood sports production when I worked at Miramar, where I was like pen and paper and I'm announcing everything and I'm trying to write things down and trying to tweet things out. Like, it's not that. Like, they have dedicated statisticians. So yeah, you're, getting an average of 625 yards a season over the course of his sophomore and junior seasons on, 23 to 26 yards per catch. Sign me up.
The month of June ends on a weekend. So when you point to the final weekend of June being the month or the weekend of this recruiting cycle, you're not talking about this particular weekend. You're talking about the next weekend, correct? Today's the 21st. Next Wednesday's the 28th. Last day of the month's on Friday the 30th.
Right. But I mean, you really want to have, I think that you're going to finish most of your visits this weekend because, traditionally, obviously they go
Okay.
like Friday to Sunday, but you're not able to go past Friday, midnight. So this weekend right here, actually, that we're heading into of the 23 to 25, that's the one that is the last big visit weekend of this cycle. Falcon TRX speed kills. Yeah, dog. I mean, like that is exactly where we are with it, and we just continue to add it in a variety of different places.
So when you look at this weekend, and I know that a lot of these names add on to the list the final couple days or drop off the list, but as it stands right now, who are the names that are the most notable?
So this one, I'm going to really kind of do my speed auctioneer run through. We've had big recruiting weekends already. We had a pretty big one last weekend. We had a huge one 2 weekends ago. This week, as we sit here on Wednesday night, we're scheduled to have 20 official visitors to Coral Gables. Now, before we even get there, Big Cam Franklin from Mississippi, Lake Cormorant, Mississippi, he visited a couple weeks ago. And he also took an unofficial for an elite recruit day in January. So he is actually back on campus right now. He is probably going to be the biggest name player who is going to participate in drills at tomorrow's Legends Camp. So he is back for a second unofficial visit. He's going to work with Joe Salavea and Jason Taylor on field. And, most of these elite camps are more features for the next recruiting class now, because with summer visits and early signing period, it's changed. So if you remember the first, the couple Paradise camps at the beginning when that started under Mark Richt had more talent than Nike's the opening. I mean, it was just, dudes with All-Americans all over the place, NFL players. I mean, a lot of them, unfortunately, went somewhere other than Miami. But, you're talking Alex Leatherwood dominated, who was it? Like all kinds of Devontae Smith at 2 of them, Jaden Hazelwood, you know what I mean? Just like superstar 5-star recruits and of the current cycle at the time were the focus. Now you're probably going to get some guys who, are really looking for to add to their profile to get an offer, or somebody like Cam Franklin who's like, hey, I'm going to take the opportunity to actually work out with these coaches, maybe develop my technique, but also see, hey, are these guys that I can work with moving forward? And it's going to be very selected. So he'll be on campus, maybe through today is Wednesday, and then, tomorrow's camp, and then leaving after that, drive back to Mississippi. But yeah, so he won't be here for the weekend. But again, if you follow the visits, this is now 2 recruit paid, not unofficials, on top of an official that was only 2 weeks ago. So Miami is definitely in the game there. Still some, closing work to be done and everything, but like this bodes well. And he canceled an LSU official visit and then is making the choice to come down on his own dime, for another unofficial with the camp participation at Miami, which, again, for a high 4-star, potential borderline 5-star recruit to do is pretty significant. So, we'll look at that. But in terms of the official visitors, it's again, a loaded group. I'm not even going to delay or anything like that any further. Leading off the list for this weekend, not right now. So this is something that has changed since the last time we talked, but now visiting this weekend, number 1 wide receiver, number 1 in the state of Florida, number 3 overall national, Jeremiah Smith, 6'3", 200 from Chaminade, Madonna, committed to Ohio State. A generational prospect. There are people who are saying that he's the best prospect at the position from down here in, a decade or more. Geno Smith's cousin, just an absolute monster. And Miami is taking the wait and see approach, kind of in the Jaden Hazelwood sweepstakes kind of a way. I don't think that there's a hidden school for Jeremiah Smith that there was for Jaden Hazelwood, because remember, he was committed to Georgia and he was all about Georgia and flirting with some other schools, and then he posted pictures from 5 years old wearing his father's Oklahoma jersey. It was like, what are y'all talking about? Like, I was laughing at y'all the whole entire time. Like, I wasn't going where I was committed. I wasn't going where I was visiting a lot. I'm going here. What are y'all talking about? I don't think that there's a secret hidden school in the same kind of a way. I do think, from what the understood engagement was at the time with Jaden Hazelwood, any recruiting chance, and if there's a chance, it is infinitesimally small. But any chance with Jeremiah Smith depends on 9 or more wins this season. I mean, it is really just, you have to jump down to the last recruiting rule, and that win, hit that, repeat against good teams, against talented teams this fall many times. A 7-win season, it ain't gonna cut it. In terms of this recruitment. And I'm not even saying, oh, well, if it's an 11-win season, is he coming? I don't even think so. Like, this might be a recruitment that just Miami cannot win, to be perfectly honest, which sucks. But, getting him on campus is key. And then hopefully you're able to get him around campus some more moving forward. But, I mean, when you're talking about a top 5 player nationally, top 1 at his position, obviously that's an elite player. Jalen Hayward from Rockledge.
Sorry, Cam. So I'll interrupt there just because are you saying that based on what's come out of Jeremiah Smith's mouth, or...
No, putting things together. I mean, he's not said, like, he maintains that he's committed to Ohio State, and like you do. But like reading tea leaves, seeing other people's reports and things, the usual stuff. But I think it's going to be a very challenging path forward for Miami to try to lock that down. And especially when you consider, Hardline's there. He's not even just a wide receivers coach now. He's named OC. Everybody he's developed, everybody he's put in the league, like all of those kind of things, and everything. It's you got real yeoman's work to do to tear that down. So I mean, we're in it. Maybe you got a puncher's chance. Maybe they drop that left, or they leave that jab out there and you step around it and hit. Maybe, but like it's going to be an uphill battle for Jeremiah Smith. And I mean, that's been well known. Jalen Hayward from Rockledge, committed to Georgia, 6 feet 180, listed as a safety, but I think Miami is looking at him as a corner. He's a guy who Miami's been pushing for pretty strongly recently, and he's coming down for a visit. Top 60 overall player, top 10 in state, top 3 at his position. Again, listed at safety, but Miami is looking at him at corner. And he's listening, but again, he's committed to Georgia, the big bad boys on the block right now. Going for their 3rd straight national championship. So it will be tough along that path, but Miami continues to chip away. And Jamil Adai, the DB's coach, was previously a coach at Georgia, so if anybody can do it, maybe he could. Caleb Odom from Carrollton, Georgia, 6'5", 215 at wide, like a big move tight end from Carrollton, Georgia. He is, I mean, you want to talk about like a guy who looks like another guy, in terms of loft and looking like Brevin Jordan, a little bit of a taller David Njoku kind of a thing. Like an explosive player at that wide tight end move position. He has to be way up on the board. So he's a guy that Miami is bringing in. Marquise Lightfoot, a 4-star defensive end edge from Chicago, Kenwood Academy, 6'5", 220. He's ranked number 70 in the country right now. He's another 4-star that you're bringing in and leaning on Jason Taylor to begin to really cement his chops as a recruiter as you bring him in. Is Sendre Afua, a big 6'4", 310 offensive guard. I think he might be bigger than 310 pounds, to be honest, but that's what he's listed at right now. It's from Seattle O'Day High School, so going back to the West Coast. And obviously you're going to lean on guys like Jane and Wayne. You're going to lean on guys like Francis Mauagoa, Riley Williams from the Pacific Northwest that Miami was able to lock down the last recruiting cycle to try to pave the way for Afua as he comes down as well. Xavier Mincy, a big safety from Daytona Mainland, is making his way down. And again, you're looking for size and speed at every position, 6'3", 180 pounds as a safety. Playing for one of the better programs in the state of Florida is great. Artavius Jones is a big jumbo athlete at 6'3", 280 from Bluntstown, which is kind of in the panhandle going towards Tallahassee. He's a guy who's an athletic freak who could really profile well at a number of positions along the line. We're, kind of debating that. I mean, some people say he could be like an all-American center. Some people are saying, put him at defensive tackle with his athletic profile. So there's a guy like that. Chris Cole from Virginia is a down-the-line relation to, I forget which hurricane he's related to. Shoot. Rohan Marley or somebody like that down the line, I believe. 6'3", 210 and a linebacker, 4-star. He's a guy that we're bringing in and looking to make a move with as we continue to try to, flip the linebacker room. Ricky Knight from Cardinal Newman in West Palm is a 4-star running back or athlete, could profile at running back or corner. He's visited a bunch of Power 5 teams recently. Ja'Cory Barney is another athlete from Miami Palmetto who's a wide receiver. But, if you remember that name, that's the Brashard Smith, Leonard Taylor, Palmetto. Also, Robbie Washington, Robbie and Bobby transferred over to Palmetto. He's a receiver that we're looking at who has kind of skyrocketed through his 7-on-7 and camp in-person performances this offseason. So he's a little bit small. I mean, he's not pocket size, but he's not really a big.
We lost you, Cam. Let's pick up some of these super chats. Cam should be able to get that corrected in just a second. Appreciate you, Falconer TRX, who also, and of course, we're going to pass this super chat on, as we will all of them. We recognize and acknowledge all the super chats and appreciate everybody being here. But we'll pass this on to Cam in regards to the best wide receiver left on the board that's Miami can get. And Ashley, thank you so much for your super chat. We will pull that one up to the screen as well as soon as Cam gets back. I would like to let everyone know that we've got some exciting live streams coming up. The first and foremost would be the one following this Miami live stream over on the main channel. Directly following this Miami live stream, we will be taking your calls tonight on college football. Just a open show, open topic, 66 days to college football. We are counting down, and we are wide open to take your calls. And then we get real specific tomorrow night as we run through the Disputed National Championships Marathon starting Thursday at 8 Eastern.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Sorry about that. I had to reset my internet really quickly. Anyways, I see that question. I'm going to come back to you, Falconer TRX. Let me go down because I'm still in the middle of this rundown. Kendall Jackson that was the next one, from Gainesville Buckholz High School, 6'4", 250 edge, is a guy that we're bringing in. Rydarius Morgan from Phoenix City Central in Alabama is a safety that we're bringing in. Zuri Madison, a big offensive lineman, 6'5", 305 from Lexington, Kentucky. Frederick Douglass is coming down. Also, Romanus Frederic, corner from St. Thomas Aquinas, is on the list. And on top of all of those guys, a bunch of the current commits. So 4-star Chance Robinson, who has been linked to Florida and others. So Miami looking to lock that down. Isaiah Thomas from Clearwater Academy International. Dylan Day from Baton Rouge Southern Lab. Juan Manaya from Paramus Catholic. The quarterback in this class presently, 6'6" Judd Anderson from Jones County, Georgia. And the nation's #1 ranked kicker, Abram Murray from Shreveport, Louisiana. So all of those dudes you have on campus. So you're going to leverage current commits to hopefully recruit, some of the uncommitted dudes, and really just, try to knock it out of the park. But there are a lot of very talented guys Even when you look at some guys who could raise their profile moving forward, but then also you got the number 3 player in the country coming in this weekend on top of these 4 stars and 5 stars, have previously visited, and a guy like Big Cam Franklin, who has visited multiple times previously, is like, yo, let me come back for Legends Camp this weekend and then move forward. It's a really stacked weekend. This is another weekend where Miami is going to be really all hands on deck. It'll be interesting to see who hosts whom in terms of all of the recruits and whatnot, and like what moves can be made. But this is another foundational week where a strong visit weekend can maybe not close the deal, but change the tide that is currently, happening, maybe in a couple of recruitments or situations, particularly like a Chance Robinson, who's like, hey, maybe I want to go to Penn State. Maybe I want to go to Florida. As he's visited these other places, and those beat writers have had conversations with him that have been positive for those other institutions. But Miami looking to just go back and lock that down, and then some other situations, obviously, with guys committed to Ohio State and Georgia, at premium positions you're looking at. But a big recruiting weekend. So I mean, pretty much starting today, from all the way through Sunday, is really just all gas, no breaks for this entire staff, the recruiting staff, administrative staff, coaching staff, everybody, because you're preparing for tomorrow's Legends Camp. And I mean, obviously that's probably not even from now, from what I'm talking, they've already been on that, you know what I mean? So you're preparing for a very, very high-end recruiting event, and then 20 official visitors at present, which again could change. You could add a couple, could lose a couple off that list, but yeah, a bunch of guys coming down. So continue to be excited, continue to just kind of trust this process of laying the foundation to build towards a very top end class, which I still believe Miami is going to have in the end.
Cam, you are correct on the Miami legacy connection. Chris Cole to Rohan Marley, his uncle.
There we go. It was in there, so that was right. So you're leveraging that as well. And good on me that I remembered that from when I was doing my research before. So appreciate the validation there. Sorry again about the internet issue that knocked me out for a little bit. To Falconer TRX's question, who is the best receiver that we can get from at this point? The realistic answer is probably going to be Josiah Trader, the other 5-star receiver at Chaminade. Maybe you can kick the tires on somebody like a Ryan Wingo from St. Louis, who's another 5-star. But really importing that kind of talent has not really gone well for Miami recently. But I would say probably in that order, Josiah Trader 1, maybe a Ryan Wingo, not even a 1A, like a 2 on that list. Beyond that, then I don't necessarily think that any of the other realistic available options are comparable. But I would say those would be the best options that are realistic for Miami at this point.
Ashley Powell.
Hey, Jay, what's good, man? Hashtag Let's Be Jerks. You already know, boy. What's good?
Ashley, appreciate you being here. It's been a minute. What's good, Cam and Mark? Let's be jerks.
You already know. So, yeah, one day at a time. But yeah, that's my boy AJ, man. Yeah. Thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate you.
Kyloren, Miami Kane. Appreciate you being here. Cam Franklin and Aiden Breland must get recruits.
I do not believe in such thing as a must get recruits, but recruits of that caliber, yes, absolutely. So let's play it out, right? And I don't want to poo-poo you or anything. Let's say that we don't get those dudes, but we end up with like Justin Scott and T.A. Cunningham instead at defensive tackle. Those are replacement. Sorry, I'll even make it better for you. We get David Stone and Justin Scott instead, 2 5-stars. But their names are not Cam Franklin or Aiden Breland. I'm smooth. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily believe that there's a such thing as a must get, but yeah, we need to get the number of guys of the caliber like that. And I just gave you 5 names that I think are maybe not one-to-one all interchangeable, but of that elite class. If we get, think back to the Palmetto 5 from some years ago. I say, hey, if we get 2 out of 5, that's hold and serve. We get 3 out of 5, then you're cooking with fish grease. I think among that group, that cadre that I just mentioned, Whether it's T.A. Cunningham, Justin Scott, David Stone, Cam Franklin, Aiden Breland, and there's probably a couple others along the lines. But if we get any two of those, I think that we're good. So, I mean, I agree with you that like 2 to 3 elite blue chip defensive tackles, absolutely. I disagree with the notion that it has to be those names, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you that we must in this class have those kind of numbers of that kind of quality. And it's really easy to see what the paradigm is in terms of recruiting. Cristobal is a 2-time national champion offensive lineman himself here at the University of Miami. Coached offensive line, his whole paradigm is based upon, we're going to punch you in the mouth from whistle to whistle. We're going to get up, we're going to huddle up, we're going to get back to the line, and we're going to do it again because we are bigger and badder and stronger and meaner than you at the line of scrimmage. And what did he do in his first full recruiting class here? Got 2 of the top 4 offensive tackles in the country, a couple other blue chips and very high-end developmental guys, and put all 6 of those dudes in the same class at the same time at that same position in your full year one, right? Because the first little itty-bitty, piece of a class, that's not a full cycle. Last year was a full cycle. So now you really focus on that top-end offensive line class last year. Now you're going to, obviously, if we can get a guy like Isendri Afua to add on another blue chip the next year, yeah, but that's not the main focus. What is the main focus? Doing the same kind of numbers with the same kind of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And so all of these visit weekends, all of these big-time names that we're talking about along the defensive line, he's saying, cool, we did such work to reshape the offensive line room in last year's recruiting class. We're going to continue to augment that. Obviously, we're going to bring in other offensive linemen and things of that nature. But the main number one, A1 focus of this cycle is the defensive line haul. And then you can see that by who we're interested in, who are interested in us, and who we continue to talk to and bring in for visit after visit after visit. So, yeah, I'm definitely with you that we need the numbers. The staff, from their action and interactions, they know that we need quality and quantity at the defensive line position. The only part that I personally disagree with, and Kylo Ren, if you're saying, hey, no, it is not the same. We need these actual dudes. I won't fight you. I won't. We have a different viewpoint. That's fine. But my viewpoint is I don't necessarily need the exact names, but I need that kind of quality and quantity in this class. It is slightly different than that wide receiver, though, because over the course of these low last 20 years, when Miami's whiffed on those elite guys, then we've clearly taken a step down in the guys who are going to replace them, with the singular exception of Amon Richards, who unfortunately had to retire medically from, competing in football. But outside of him, and he was at the top of the board, top of the list that year, every other time that we missed on somebody, it wasn't like, cool, I'm going to put in another guy of that caliber. It was like, damn, now we're going to drop down a clear level. But among the guys that I think that we're mentioning a defensive tackle, all of them are in that same kind of cadre area. So I'm less impressed or less concerned with the names as opposed to just actually locking down those actual dudes.
Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern time is the time, and the destination is the Voice of College Football Miami. Cam Underwood's here to take your comments and questions. Join Cam, of course, and the rest of the crew there at State of the U, SB Nation, stateoftheu.com. On a negative note, it's only been one season, but Christopher says here, I thought Mario Cristobal was the coach that was going to get things rolling.
Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And I think that we're seeing some of that. And, it is again, this is not a cosmetic kind of a thing. This is not changing paint and maybe a couple light fixtures. This is a gut, if not a full tear down renovation and rebuild. And yeah, I think that obviously things did not go the way that we wanted in the first, year on field. But if you look at the little piece of class he got in 22, the full class he brought in 23, including all of these transfers at all of these positions, Miami, and with Cristobal at the head, have been very intentional about restructuring the roster. And, like the new forthcoming football operations facility from a, infrastructure standpoint is going to come online. They're going to start, construction on that sometime soon, I believe. There's a lot of other things as well. And, I don't think that we're at a terminal point of this version of the program. I think that we're still in the infancy of what this can be, especially from a roster construction standpoint. And hopefully we're able to take a step forward this year. Hopefully, new coordinators and infusing a little bit of different talent in some positions is going to be beneficial towards that. I think that you're pushing towards 8-win, maybe 9-win regular season. I think 9 is maybe about the ceiling for this regular season. But if you go from 5-7 to 8-4, that's a step in the right direction. And then if you have 8-4, I think that you're going to see positive recruiting results. Now, do not link 8-4, with, oh, we're getting Jeremiah Smith. Like, that's a bridge of like a leap of logic that no. But I think if you see 8-4, then there's no reason why this isn't a top 6, top 5 kind of a class. And then, okay, you have that class with the class before, and then like the talent of the first little piece of a class, add in a couple transfers, find out whoever's going to be quarterback next year after Tyler Van Dyke leaves, because Tyler Van Dyke, there's no way he's coming back to the University of Miami for 2024. Like, get that through your thick skulls right now. But I think it is very possible that things can continue to improve, but I know it doesn't feel great right now. But I'd say don't throw the baby with the bathwater right now. Like, I know that last season did not meet any of our hopes or dreams or expectations, but I don't think that we're at a point where it's like, cool, I'm going to fully close the book on Mario Cristobal, even being someone with that being a possibility of having success in Miami. I don't think that we're there just yet, Christopher. So, though I will not say, hey, if you feel bad, don't feel bad. I'm like, yeah, like it was a bad season on the field, but it gets darkest before the dawn, and I think that we're going in a decent direction where having some kind of hope and some kind of hope of things getting going in a positive direction is still there.
So for the coach who shows up as the head coach at Colorado, Rutgers, Kansas, and has championship aspirations, I understand the teardown. For the coach who shows up at Miami and inherits a top 15 to 20 roster in the nation, is that reclamation project and that teardown necessary because of culture, or is it because of scheme fit isn't right?
It depends on the evaluation and estimation of the person who's coming in to do the rebuild. I and many others thought it was going to be more surface level, but Cristobal believes it's deeper than rap. Like, it's really systemic all the way down. So it's scheme, it's culture, it's just the entire construction of an organization of the entire organization, like just everything, some systematically, programmatically, just, there's many different things. And that's just a little bit of a different paradigm, obviously. So, if you bring in somebody of a similar paradigm, like if it were me, if Manny Diaz had come back for another season, or we brought in someone other than Cristobal, I think it would have maybe not been as stark a departure from what had existed previously. And I think you could have had success with that. But in Cristobal's mind, he said, yeah, I get what you're doing and how, everything, but like, the entire paradigm of what we're doing is wrong. And so we got to tear all that shit down. And it's just more than one way to skin a cat kind of a thing. So obviously I'm not gonna say one is right or wrong, but he's very firm on like, this is what was being done was not the way to do it. So yeah, it's, and you usually don't see a lot of super duper whole scale changes. I mean, like, were there changes from Mark Richt to Kirby Smart? Sure. But like, was it the same kind of tear it down? No. You know what I mean? So I was expecting, not with back-to-back national championships, but I was expecting something similar, which is like we're going to lean on the tent poles of the foundation of this program that we've done. We're going to tweak a couple things and we're going to really push forward. I was expecting something like that, to your point, because Miami had been, okay, not national championship worthy, but like relatively successful, for a mid-major program, you had the 10-win season, a 9-win season, a couple 8-win seasons, all right. And if we tweak that, we should be able to go from 8 to 10 to 11 down the line. And Chris said, ain't going to be no tweaks. We're going to tear it all the way down, and that's how we're going to get forward, which is just a difference of opinion, really.
Falconer TRX, appreciate you being here. How terrible is the nurse school in the Panhandle?
Oh, that's funny. In case you don't know, Florida State was founded as Florida State Women's College in Tallahassee, which is where that comes from. That's a factual thing. Like, hey, go look it up. But yeah, I at least respect Florida State University. I don't like them, but I respect them. And I do have some friends who attended that institution. Jason Parker from the Florida State show here with Mark. He works in television down here, and I will see him. It's funny because he'll get credentials to Canes games through his day job and everything, and he will accost me in the press box and things like that. So, I will see him. But I at least respect him, and I respect. I have several other friends who went to Florida State or are fans of Florida State. At least I respect them. I don't respect anybody associated with the University of Florida. Like, I have one really good friend who's a Gators fan, and I'm just like, years and years ago, this person and myself, we had to come to Jesus meeting, and we said, look, we're leaving that aside. I'm not going to talk about the U. You're not going to talk about UF, and the best of friends we can be. And it's like him and probably him and his brother and like a couple other people, like literally, I could probably count them on one hand of Florida associated people whom I can deal with. Otherwise, like, I don't respect Gainesville, Alachua County, anybody who bought that, loved that. But Florida State, I will at least respect them. And I do mean that from a personal standpoint. And then also, like, I think that, UF is probably a better institution, but Florida State has a very, very, very top end school of music. So yeah, and again, that's what my degree's in. Take it for what you want. But I at least respect them. But how terrible is that? I mean, and if you're looking towards this football season, I think that I think there's a lot of smoke with maybe not as much substance about Florida State football coming into 2023 that some others might think. And I think it really depends on the escapability and the what in the world did he do ability of Jordan Travis. I really think that they are. I think it is a house of cards. I think that it is very flimsy, but if he's able to make all those plays at the times that they need them, and they did need them last year, and I think are going to need all of those plays this year. I think that's the only way to it, but I don't think they're holistically as good as everybody says that they are. I think that they have an athlete at quarterback who has developed and everything and uses his athleticism really, really well, but it's not as firm a great program as some others are really pushing. But we're going to see. And I'm not even saying that to say that Miami's going to beat them this year, because I hate to say it, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see.
I think there's a lot of things in play and a lot of things converging at the same time here. One would be that, yes, Florida State has been down for a long time in college football years. The last time they had a good football team was in 2016 when they won the Orange Bowl. So since then, they've been 500 at best and usually sub 500. And then they finish off a 5-7 season. They pull off a 1-point win against LSU, and they took advantage of a fairly weak ACC. I don't want to discredit their wins, but they did face 3 ranked teams in the middle of the season, and they lost to all 3. They lost to Wake, NC State, and Clemson consecutively. And then they took off against the likes of the Georgia Techs and the Boston Colleges and the so forth at the end of the season. Yeah, in Miami, and a 6-6 Florida team. So they didn't beat any winning teams on this 6-game winning streak at the end. Even their bowl opponent was not of the caliber that I would have liked to have seen just based on a matchup to see how valid their season was. They were taking on a 6-6 Oklahoma team, their worst record in 23 years. So it was difficult for me to find that victory to substantiate. They were finally beating the teams that they are supposed to always beat. So they kind of raised the floor quite a bit. Now they've got a season, I believe, to Cam's point, where in addition to Jordan Travis, they had a lot of favorable NFL draft decisions for guys to stick around, make it another go, take a run at it. I don't know what's behind that that's of substance based on their recruiting. This is largely a roster and a depth chart that's been built by the transfer portal. They've been extremely successful there. The recruiting's been okay, but it's nowhere close to vintage Florida State type recruiting. And I think it also coincides with Clemson coming back to earth. And I made this comment on our last or a couple shows ago because we were looking at the Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State dynamic, and a lot of people are on the Penn State train. And I think there are tangibles involved there, but it's also some people just want to see a change. They want to predict that something new is going to happen. It's Clemson, 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 Clemson that they just, okay, I've got a reasonable, I've got a reason to select someone else. So let's go with the Florida State as the chic pick this year to break through.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a game that we're all going to watch, Florida State Clemson, probably the marquee game of the entire ACC season and everything. But yeah, I think that Mark's evaluation is right. There are a lot of things that are converging into Falconer T-Rex's point. I mean, yeah, maybe people are really pushing them hard. And, I don't necessarily think that the foundation is there, but, I also can't sit here and say that there's potential for optimism for Miami and then not say, even with everything that, we said, even though they didn't beat a really good team, they lost all those games against ranked teams last year. They beat a 6-6 Oklahoma team with their worst, record in a quarter century and things like that. They still went out and won those games. And they do have, they have Jordan Travis and that, and then they have Jared Verse on defense. They got, 7-foot tall Shaquille O'Neal or whatever his name is at wide receiver. And I know it's Johnny Wilson, guys, or whatever. But you know what I mean? So that, they do have some star power and things like that. But I think that, maybe we're getting a little out over our skis talking about, it's Florida State and then everybody else in the ACC, which I have heard from people, and I just don't necessarily think we're there, but it will be worth watching. And hey, they're our number one rival, so I will be paying attention to what they're doing like I always do.
Homeless Hero, coming from the vantage point of a certain school with a famous marching band, is asking about the best marching band in the ACC. Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, the best marching band in the Big Ten is the University of Michigan marching band, 235-member Michigan marching band, to be clear.
Really?
So let's just start there.
Against Ohio State? The script,
like I said,
Ohio,
the University of Michigan marching band, 235-member. I had their CD growing up, honestly and truly. I really did, or a couple CDs from the University of Michigan.
Okay, so I'm not qualified to fight you on this by any stretch of the imagination. And obviously I will at least admit when I'm hugely biased, as opposed to the people that I talk to. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the folks that call in and so forth every day. I was trying to get this point across. I divert for just a second here.
Come with it.
Nebraska, Michigan, 1997, they split a national championship. I am just begging. I am begging and pleading while I'm running a debate show and basically saying, let's size up these two teams, so forth and so on. I think that they have both earned a national championship because there's no way to differentiate between two schools that played high caliber schedules, won their conference, went undefeated. There's just no reasonable or fair way to say, well, they did X, Y, and Z against this schedule, therefore let's award them a national championship. I think justice was served in terms of justice would have been served, obviously, playing a game. But since we did not have that both schools have a rightful claim to the national championship or a national championship. And I cannot sit here 25 years later and say Nebraska would have won that game for sure, or Michigan would have won that game for sure. And I think it's beyond ludicrous that people get on here and say Michigan would have won for sure, or Nebraska would have won for no idea. I state that because sports fans, college football fans in particular, because that's who we deal with here, are just insanely biased. And that's okay. Just admit it. And I would have loved and was begging and pleading of what turned out to probably be an audience of 2,500 people, not live, but in watching that video, if I would have had one example of a Michigan or a Nebraska fan come to the table and say, you know what? I actually think they might have been a little bit better and they might have beaten us. But there was no examples of that.
Facts.
Everybody
Zero.
takes their allegiance to their side, which is fine, but just admit it.
Yeah.
Because if everyone saw it from an unbiased standpoint, then the randomness of the odds would just tell you that if people were just being able to objectively watch football or review the results and the statistics, that you would have Michigan people saying, you know what, Nebraska might have been better, or Nebraska people saying, you know what, Michigan might have been better, but that doesn't exist.
Right.
So that brings us to the marching band. Yes, I am probably even more biased about this than I am the football because I'm in the habit of taking just the nuts and bolts of the stats and the results in the football. And I think I do I'm not saying I'm not biased toward Ohio State. I am, but I do my best to filter that out and objectively. But when this is just me being wowed my entire life since I was 8 years old by Script Ohio and all the other formations that they put together. So explain the Michigan excellence in this.
I'm from Detroit. I grew up as a Michigan fan. I'm not going to say, like, please, no. Like, that's 100%.
So you're attacking it from the same way.
No, totally. I'm being totally biased in that. I just said that whole diatribe right there was born of me needling. Yeah, like whatever. I'm not. Yeah, like no, I'm never going to say that. So I just want to say that. But in terms of the ACC, which is the actual asked question by Hummus Hero, I think that there is a short list of the really good bands. I'm not going to get into the whole history, but basically Miami, they kicked the marching band between athletic oversight and funding and music department school of music oversight and funding many times. And with every volley back and forth, the funding dropped. Long story, good buddy of mine, Joe, was band captain for a year and a half at the University of Miami. He was on bass drum number 4 for 2 years, and then he was on the snare line after that. So like he would wax poetic about all these things. So like I know more about band politics than I care to. But I just wanted to share that obviously as a University of Miami Frost School of Music alum, and my good friend Joe, who's also a School of Music alum and everything, was in the band for 4 years and all those kind of things. I just wanted to share that. I know that Miami is not anywhere near the top. Honestly, the marching band is probably near the bottom. Unfortunately, I will say that. At the top end, I will say you're probably looking at Florida State. And I've talked about this forever. The first time in person, 2000, Miami, Florida State in the Orange Bowl was my first in-person interaction with that rivalry. And first of all, that whistle is iconic. And they have a specific brand of whistle. All the drum majors in the world, they know that whistle. And you can hear it over anything. And I think it was after a big sack or something that Miami had done, and everybody is in full throat. I mean, this just roaring crowd in the Orange Bowl. And at the Orange Bowl, what they used to do is they used to put the opposing band in the upper deck, the last little itty bitty section. And so they're up there, and I saw in way down in if you remember, the Orange Bowl was that horseshoe, right? That, shape. And way down in the front, like very corner of that section, saw the all white jumper. Saw that little dude. He went from this side to this size, and you heard that whistle, and you have that drum fill, deep, 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 boom, and that downbeat hit of the full Seminole War chant. And I was actually not in the student section that time. I was actually sitting around the 50, 40-yard line. I snuck in and sat next to somebody else, whatever. So I was not in the student section, like directly across from them, all the way at the end there on the Miami sideline. I was near the 50. So they were pointed directly at me, and it felt the sound from the bells of those horns felt like the fire of 10,000 suns. It was ridiculous. And this is somebody who grew up in Big Ten country. Like, I played clarinet in band. I've seen all these marching bands, Michigan State. I've never seen State in person. I've seen them on TV. I've never actually been to the game in Ann Arbor or Columbus. I've never been there, so I've not seen it in person. But it was truly so. Like, I mean, it just they basically hit the STFU button from the upper deck. Like when they started crank that thing at full volume, it was incredible. So I think the Florida State is at the top of the ACC. I think Clemson's band is also skilled and large in number, and they have like a couple of band tags that they play all the time. So I think that they're kind of towards the top. The North Carolina schools, I really don't think have very good marching bands, to be perfectly honest. From what I've seen, Boston College, nah, they're not really that great. The Virginia teams don't really have great bands. Georgia Tech does some fun stuff, but I wouldn't say that it's overall the same quality. Louisville's band has been fun for a while, so I would put them kind of in that top part of the conversation. And I think that that's pretty much about it that I can think of. So yeah, you're looking at Florida State, Clemson, maybe a Louisville, maybe a Georgia Tech, just because they've done some fun things in the past, at least in terms of the band. But yeah, I mean there are a good number, but I mean for my money, like across the sport, I think that and this is totally biased of me growing up in Big Ten country, I think that the instrumentation of Big Ten bands and the arrangements of the songs they play. So the instrumentation is like the composition of the band in terms of how many of which instrument there are. That's what I mean by instrumentation. So, like there's places that are woodwind heavy. So you have a lot more woodwinds as opposed to brass. And then in the brass section, maybe they have more mellophones, maybe they have more euphoniums. Well, mellophones and euphoniums technically are the same thing. But you know what I mean? Like they have different numbers of the different instrument classes. But the way that Big Ten bands are constructed from an instrumentation standpoint, and then the music is arranged, that is more traditional marching band to me than anything else. And I think that Florida State is more like that than some of these other bands and everything. And then, I mean, also in Big Ten country, hey, I will say best fight song in sports, and I hate it. Well, I don't hate it, but I hate to say it, but the best fight song in sports, USC. That fight on, hoof, with the key and everything. I mean, you could hear the Hollywood influences of that in the middle when they come back and they have that key change, and then you get those trumpets coming. I mean, like if you close your eyes, it feels like you are marching to the walls of Troy, man. It is really, really a superb composition of music. But that's my personal take on it, and I know that it is biased by where I'm from and like what this is very much like what I would do, or in the way that I would do it. Kind of like if you're like, hey, if you ran a football team, like what would be the scheme that you ran? Or like, hey, if you were a basketball coach, which I've done in the past, like what would be what sets would you do, or what would you like? That's based upon a lot of what I've done or what I would do in terms of that answer. But yeah, I mean, something to see, but hopefully. I don't really see Miami growing the band just because I don't think the money is there. But, hey, it is what it is.
Well, we lost about 30% of the audience talking about the marching bands, but I personally enjoyed that. So
yeah, likewise. And I mean, we're just a little bit over time too. So maybe they were just like, absolutely. Hey, talk to, their significant others and, hey, honey, like from 7 to 8, I'm going to do this. And then she's like, hey, Dave. So we did go over a little bit, and if you're one of those guys and you came back and watched this later, great. If hey, we just kind of touched on the music nerddom of my background and lost you, sorry about that, but hey, thanks for watching anyway.
For what you missed, folks, you can just watch the rest of the video. It's always here, it's posted. So as was the case, we peaked about 5 or 10 minutes ago with the largest portion of the audience, so you can catch what you missed. The video is right there. Cam, on State of the U this week.
Yeah, man. Got a couple of things going on up. I'm not even going to spoil any of them. You see the link right there, stateoftheu.com. You can go check that out. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook on social media is at The State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, where I am currently tweeting through a rewatch of Suits, the USA show, which is now on Netflix, which I really enjoyed for the first few seasons. Obviously, some of the artificial extensions of keeping the two main protagonist characters away from their directed and intended relationship have been not things that I've enjoyed, but I still do enjoy that. So I talk about that and some other things. And again, if you see me around here in South Florida, always feel free to say hey. And we really do appreciate you guys watching and supporting Roger Dodger. I am a genius, and hey, man, that fight song I've always said, even growing up, even when I was in my room with my clarinet practicing the Michigan and Michigan State fight songs and all those different kind of things, I actually transcribed the clarinet part to the fight on to the USC fight song, because I was like, yeah, no, that's really, and I mean, this is going back, all the way into the 80s, and because I'm old, but 80s and 90s, you know what I mean? So I am very firm of that stance that you guys have the best fight. Like, it sounds like Troy, and you guys are the Trojans, so it should be that. But yeah, like I said, as always, man, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting. We really do appreciate that. And we'll check in with you sometime soon, like next week, maybe.
Thanks, Cam. Next Wednesday, everyone, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will see you there. I am headed over to the main channel to take your calls on college football. Over to the main channel right now, taking your calls on college football.